and welcome back to my channel. This week I'm going to be going over how to trim a plate on the wheel. So if you watched my how to throw a plate video from last year, this is basically just going to be the follow-up of how to trim a plate. I am going to be using a foam bat. So for this I will be using my pottery wheel, a foam bat, a needle tool, and a trimming tool. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, everyone, so I have my plate here. I threw this a couple days ago. I will like to note that I do like to trim my plates a little bit harder than leather hard, mainly because when we flip these over, you're really gonna be putting a lot of pressure on these outer angles. And because there's gonna be like so much surface area in the middle versus what's actually holding it up out here, is we want this to be a little bit harder because you don't want the top to kind of dip in. I am using a foam bat. You can kind of see that there are rings around here. This is really awesome because you don't have to use like little clay wads to get it to stick down, because with plates, you're gonna wanna trim all the way out to the edge. It's really hard to get that clean edge when you have those little wads there. So we're gonna go ahead and line this up, and you guys can use your needle tool to find the center if needed. But I like the foam bats because it's a lot easier to find that. So you can kind of see that it's not quite up to the line here, but it is everywhere else. So we can try that. All right, so that seems pretty good. And this is a bit heavy, but you always want to kind of listen to the sound that it makes when you tap it before you start trimming. So that's pretty thick there. So we're just gonna go ahead and kind of start going for it. So you do want to note that if your plate does have any give when you start to do this, you want to be careful that you really don't go any further into the center. I suggest that if it does have any give, probably not trimming in the spots that it's already kind of moving, if it is leather hard at least. So let's start with the outer edge here. And I use a foam bat for plates and shallow things, mainly because the taller that these foam bats get, because they seem great if you're first discovering them and you know, you're like, I don't have to put the wads down, great. But the taller that it gets, the more likely it's gonna be to tip over when you're trimming. So plates and shallow bowls, I suggest on this, and cups you can do. I like to use them, but if you are new to the practice, I would definitely suggest trying it on something that you are not totally in love with in case it goes flying. So, like always, I'm gonna start with my outer edge just to kind of curve that in. Okay, so now that I have my edge kind of curved in the way that I want it, then I will usually try to pick a spot to start my foot. And I will start that on the outer edge so I know how far out to go when I do start in my middle. So now that I have this, I'm gonna kind of dig my edge in. All right, now we know where that starts. I can go ahead and start from the middle. Now, if I have a little bit of excess, like kind of coming up on one side, I usually like to scrape that off before I start, which This is just left over from when I wired it off the bat, because that will mess me up later. So since I already have this weird thing in the middle, so we'll start, we'll move outward. So that still seems pretty thick. That's not echoing enough, so I can keep going. So we do want to think about how this all ends up looking when it's glazed. So you want this bottom part to be or far enough away from the depth of the foot, so that way you can get glaze in here, because the whole point of a foot is to kind of have a minimal point of unglazed work. You can go out to in to out, like it really doesn't matter. As long as you have a stable hand, you should be fine. And I will warn you guys, when you do end up trimming with a foam bat, it is a bit more elevated than it would be if you had a normal bat on here or just the wheel head. So a lot of your extra clay goes kind of everywhere. That sounds a bit louder, so we're kind of getting to where we want to be here. Clean up those little lines. So I do want to go ahead and get some more out of the outside here, because this seems pretty deep, and it almost seems deeper than it is here. And I'm gonna pick this up so you can see, and also so that way, you know, if you are feeling like you're not sure how deep it is, go ahead and pick up your plate. But you kind of want to see that you want a continuous curve going up and over here. And right here, this is a little bit flat. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to kind of cut down a little bit here, and I'm going to dig this outer edge in here a little bit more so that way it curves. So let's go ahead and find that center again. Thank God for these lines, because I don't think I'd be able to find it without the guide. At least not for a while. There we go. So we're gonna start with the outside here. And now we're gonna kind of dig this in a little bit more. So start a little bit on the outside, and we'll just slowly kind of angle the tip of that trimming tool down so we get close to the outside. And if you have a brush, that probably works better than blowing on it, honestly. And if this is bone dry and you were trimming, please do not blow on it. The dust from the clay is toxic because it has silica in it, and that'll give you silicosis. Okay. I think that'll be my last one here. And I usually, for the last bit, I usually take a little bit of water on my finger and just kind of go over the edges of my foot just to make sure that everything seems good to go. So now we can go ahead and flip this over. This feels pretty nice. We can see that this kind of has a little bit more angle here, so that seems just about good. And you can really do this foot any way you want to, but this is just how I typically do my standard plate foot. So, all right, everyone, so there you have it. That is how to trim a plate on the wheel using a foam bat. If you liked this video or found it helpful in any way, go ahead and hit like, subscribe, and thank you all for watching. I'll see you next week.